Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy whose breakdowns you watch whilst you wait for new rock stars to upload theirs, and this video we have a lot to talk about. Episode 7 of Wandavision brings heaps with it, and we pick up in the aftermath of Wanda expanding the Hex after she lost her vision like Daredevil. The Malcolm in the Middle-esque entry had Vision saying "you're not the boss of me now," and the cliffhanger showed Sword for the clowns they really are. Episode 7 evolves the two storylines in many ways, and there's a lot to unpack from the entry. As always, I'm going to be discussing more of the general aspects of the episode up top, but if you want to speed through the video, then the time codes are linked below. Now firstly, I want to go over Billy and Tommy, which just so happens to be the name of both my grandfathers. It's all connected. It's clear that the characters are becoming Wiccan and Speed, and thus I feel like this is the best video to give you the 411 on who they really are. Originally in the comics, the twins were introduced as Wanda's children in the graphic novel Vision and the Scarlet Witch. This book followed the pair as they made a life in New Jersey, but there was a twist in the tale. Because Vision was unable to have children, Wanda unwittingly used fragments of Mephisto's soul to give life to them, and they were eventually reabsorbed by the villain. However, the pair were eventually brought back, and they were reincarnated under surrogate parents to become the mutants that we all know and love. Because Vision can't have kids and they're technically blood relatives to different people, the comic book counterparts aren't really Wanda's children, but they are at the same time. The weird outline of the family tree might even be upping the ante when compared to something as complicated as Game of Thrones, and that had moments where Jon Snow was up in the ante, eh? Now I kind of feel like the show could potentially just combine these two arcs, skip over the devil in the details, and give us a more streamlined story. As the weeks have gone on, I've grown slightly less confident that Mephisto is the villain, and it raises less questions by just having them remain as her kids by birth. The pair are the first two naturally born superheroes in the MCU, and it is likely that they will open the door for other quote-unquote mutants to come down the line. When it comes to their powers, they possess pretty much the exact same skill set as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. To paraphrase Maria Hill in Age of Ultron, Speed's fast and he's weird. Unlike their mother and uncle though, they also have some unique abilities, though they can't beatbox as well as Wanda can. Now Speed can actually alter the kinetic energy of objects through using his touch. Similar to Gambit of the X-Men, this causes them to vibrate and overheat, and thus eventually they explode. Like Wanda, Wiccan can fire energy bolts, and he also has the ability to read minds. He's definitely the one to look out for, and amongst the magic community, he is highly regarded. Doctor Strange has even predicted that one day he will grow up to become the most powerful superhero in the universe, and with this in mind, it makes sense as to why the pair are so sought after in Westview. Now they are both members of the Young Avengers, and with Haley Steinfeld playing Kate Bishop, it seems like the studio are setting the team up. Now on to another key character, and that is Agatha Harkness, who caused a lot of aggro as Agnes. Though we've touched upon her in some of the breakdowns so far, I thought we'd ag another look so you can understand her comic book roots and the way that Marvel originally set her up. Terrible puns. Now Agatha was born circa 11,000 BC, and after having contact with a cosmic being known as Scryer, she slowly made her way through the world, mastering her magical abilities. By the 17th century, she'd come to settle amongst an English colony in Salem, America, and amongst them she formed a coven of witches. The Puritans of the time tried to uproot them and conducted the Salem witch trials, which she of course survived. Shortly after, she settled into the town of New Salem, a made-up magical community in the Marvel Universe. As its strongest sorceress, she became the leader and actually had an evil warlock child known as Nicholas Scratch, which was probably referenced in Agnes's rabbit Signor Scratchy, which also happens to be a nickname for the devil. After the Second World War, Agatha joined the US Army in stopping Hilda von Hate, and shortly after she posed as a nanny and started working for Sue and Reed Richards in order to keep an eye on their baby Franklin. Eventually, Agatha was captured by the Salem Seven and taken back to New Salem, where she was burned at the stake. Wanda went toe-to-toe with them, and not long after, she fell pregnant. Agatha's spirit appeared to her on Halloween when the barrier between worlds was at its thinnest, and later she manifested to reveal the truth about her babies. Though an eventual mentor to Wanda, Wanda actually ended up killing her, and since then, the characters sort of drifted back and forth between appearing in certain arcs. Now as for episode 7, This entry pulls heavily from shows like Modern Family and The Office. We watched as the series has mimicked sitcoms set in the decades, and this once more expertly recaptures the aesthetic of the shows that they're aping. Over the series, we pretty much watched Marvel also chronicle the evolution of the sitcom, and have witnessed how these changed from very standard shows to ones that then broke the fourth wall. This idea of allowing characters to talk directly to the audience was then brought very much into the plot itself, and both The Office and Modern Family were presented as documentaries. Unlike the other episodes, we get to see Wanda and Vision's inner thoughts through this, and it displays a lot about their characters. Kinda hope that we eventually get more decades down the line, and hopefully we will see Professor X showing up in the 2020s decade like this. Cut to Wanda waking up and remembering the morning after the night before. We've all been there, love. Once I watched Justice League. Now she explains how her fear and anger got the best of her, and also waves her hand in emotion similar to how she casts a spell, showcasing that this is what she tends to do when she's backed into a corner. The hex itself is very much built upon the anguish of the character, and thus her doing this shows how she prefers to magic her problems away instead of tackling them head on. Tommy and Billy enter the room, and we can see that they are wearing the colours that are typically associated with their comic book counterparts. Speed of course wears green, and Wiccan wears red, blue and black. They talk about how their game controllers have been flipping through time, and shoutouts Kid for commenting on my last video that when Wanda expanded the hex, there was also a mixture of the decades. This losing the control of the controllers shows that she's lost control, puns there, and in pops some GameCube ones, some from the Atari, before they finally switch to Uno cards. Billy says that his head feels weird, and as we learned last episode, the character has psychic abilities that are likely picking up all of the extra people that Wanda's brought into the domain. Wanda says that she's planning on taking a quarantine staycation, and whoa love, too soon that, too soon. Now, some interesting things in this scene are that the duvet and Vision's pillow are both covered in hexagons. However, Wanda's pillow isn't, likely showcasing that she's not subject to the same things that he and the rest of the town are. Hexagons have of course appeared throughout the show, and in nature they also appear in beehives, namely because of the shape of honeycombs. In preparation for this series, I reread some of the classic storylines that led into House of M, including Avengers Disassembled, which featured a queen bee character named Adriana Soria. The queen was able to control her subjects through a hive mind, and this is very similar to how Wanda is able to alter the actions and memories of those around her. Though the characters are different, I did find it interesting how the graphic novel set up the events of House of M, which this show is based upon, and it too used the imagery of hexagons throughout. The duvet and pillow also contain hexagons within hexagons, cementing the expansion of the hex and how it has started to encompass more things, which Wanda clearly regrets. Another interesting thing is that Wanda says, "We built the hex, not I." This highlights the end reveal in that it's been Agatha all along. Now Wanda goes down the stairs in a shot that very much apes the one from last week. Perhaps this shows how the decades are starting to become interchangeable, and I love how they kind of mimic the cinematography here to push forward that idea. She starts to have some cereal, and we notice as the milk changes. There's actually a missing child poster on one version of it, and as we know, there are kids slowly starting to disappear. However, if we line this show up with the behind the scenes images of Spider-Man 3, it looks like there's also kids missing in that too. Perhaps Agnes ends up doing this to kids on a grand scale, and this may be how the properties are interlinked. There's also a maze on the back of the sugar snaps, which could be a nod to how the show is basically all of the characters trying to navigate this thing that they've been pulled into. There's a purple elephant on it, and the phrase "an elephant never forgets" very much juxtaposes how those inside the hex have been stripped of their memories. I'm sorry, that's a reach, that's a big reach. Now, the intro is very much in the vein of The Office, down to its theme tune, and we see the words Wanda flash on screen. This shows that she is alone, and it's only at the end that Vision comes in. Now, an interesting detail that pops up is that it says created by Wanda Maximoff. I still believe that Wanda created the hex herself, and the person that pushed her into doing it was Agnes, or rather Agatha. Agatha could be draining the life force from her, and this might be why the Yo Magic commercial showed someone starving to death whilst focusing on a smaller problem. Either way, we cut to the temporary sword retreat and see that the hex is now covering a wide area, very much in an under the dome style. Hayward says they launched today, and it's likely that he's planning an all-out assault for episode 9. Now I say 9 because I think next week's will be a flashback, and the one following it will be the culmination of the reveal at the end of this one. We then cut to inside the Hex and see Vision waking up. Hayward's henchman is now a strongman, and Darcy is an escape artist. She was sucked in whilst tied to a car wearing handcuffs, and thus this lines up with what she was doing on the outside world, and it's a detail I appreciate. At Wonders, she tells the kids that she doesn't have the answers, and felt a lot like I did until the last 3 minutes of this episode. She believes that everything is meaningless, but there are of course dark forces working behind the scenes, likely trying to weaponize her kids because of their powers. Agatha walks in, and the first hint we get that she's an alternate character is her purple shirt, which is a colour of Agatha in the comics. She also asks Wanda to look at her mole, and shout out Andrew Nicholson on Twitter for pointing out that this is typically the mark of a witch. She takes the kids with her, and slowly the room starts to jump through the time periods, with the fireplace that was present in episode 1 now making a return. Jump to Jimmy and Monica, and they discuss the Cataract Project. As we predicted, Hayward was trying to weaponize Vision, but he was unable to bring him back online. Last week hinted to us that times got desperate during the 5-year period between the snap and blip, and likely because of the fear that was rife throughout the world, he turned back to trying to recreate Ultron or a defense program of the same ilk. Now when we saw Wanda at the end of Endgame, she seemed to be accepting of Vision's death. However, it is possible that when she learned he was being turned into a weapon, that she completely snapped. Vision doesn't have the same rights as a human due to being a synthezoid, and she would have no control over what happened to his body. This is likely why she broke into S.W.O.R.D., and as it's a crime to go against a law enforcement agency, the character had to go on the run. Now Monica arrives and meets her friends, namely Major Goodner. Now though this was a slightly disappointing reveal, I don't actually believe that this is the aerospace engineer, and I think that they'll probably come in towards the end of the series, and thus the endless speculation continues. Back at the circus, we watch as Vision tries to awaken Darcy and see a sign saying "Fool the Guesser," which I think is the showrunners making fun of us for doing non-stop fan theory videos and getting them all wrong. Well, I did get the Agnes thing, to be fair. I did a big video on it. Anyway, after a brief stop by Wonders where reality is falling apart, we jump to the commercial. The woman from the other ones is back, and in this she clearly represents Wanda. So far, every ad has pulled from a trauma in her past, and this is clearly the grief she felt over the death of Vision. The character sits alone on a bench, and this is very much in the same way that Wanda would have been at the end of Endgame. Like the start of the episode, she also lies in a bed by herself, and the antidepressant Nexus is mentioned. Now this has a number of things going on with it, and the first thing that we should focus on is the word Nexus. In Age of Ultron, this was categorized as the central hub, where all information on the internet flows through. However, in Marvel Comics, it goes far beyond that. Wanda is actually what's known as a Nexus being, and this means that she's someone who is exactly the same across all dimensions in the multiverse. Nexus beings are keystones of existence, and they have the ability to affect probability and therefore the future. If our theories are right about these things being linked to the Infinity Stones, then we might actually have somewhat of a double up here. So far, we've seen a toaster that looked similar to Vision due to its face layout. Vision was nicknamed Toaster in the comics, and thus if this is true, we can assume that the light in the middle of it is the Mind Stone. The watch dealt with time like the Time Stone, and the Hydra soap box looked like the Tesseract. The Lagos red liquid was similar to the Reality Stone, and due to Yo Magic dealing with death, it could also be the Soul Stone. Now this Nexus advert too centers around reality, and it may be because of the stone's multiple states that it's appeared twice. Maybe we got the Lagos one wrong though, and it was actually the Power Stone, but obviously let me know your thoughts below. Now the plot to kidnap the children could be a Scarlet Herring itself, and the Infinity Stones being recreated may also be the main objective in the show. We know that they are paramount to keeping all of reality stable, and thus their recreation is very important as it stops the main timeline from travelling down a dark path. In the trailers we have seen what looks like it could be the Mind of Soul Stone, along with what may be the Tesseract, but obviously we won't find that out for definite until we have all of the episodes together. Cut to Agnes's house, and I just want to shout out Jeff Barbos on Twitter for pointing out that this is actually the same home from Bewitched, further pointing towards the end reveal. Agatha sits down with the two on the sofa, along with Senor Scratchy. Wiccan is unable to read her mind because she's empty, and this could actually highlight that she may be possessed too, potentially by Nightmare or Mephisto. Yes, we're still going with the Mephisto thing. The reason I think this is because she was a good character in the comics for the most of it, and I definitely think that the basement and post-credit scene highlights that there are more people involved. We still haven't seen the enigmatic Ralph yet, and I believe that they might actually be the big bad behind it all. Cut to the outside of the hex and Monica trying to re-enter it. This initially doesn't go according to plan, but the lass never learns and decides to stick her face in it once more. Now, saying that though, I absolutely love this scene, and it's one of the highlights in this show for me so far. The transformations are absolutely incredible, and seeing her finally become Photon, I just found fascinating. If you want a full breakdown on the character, then check out our last episode, but I think we can now fully confirm that they are one and the same because of the similarities in uniform. In the background we can also hear audio clips from Captain Marvel, and these are namely quotes from Carol and her mother, which show that we all have the ability to be a hero. Now Monica actually sees radio waves within the hex, and it is possible that these towers are what's broadcasting the signal. I'm not 100% on that, as for God's sakes I'm an Easter egg hunter, not a radio engineer. Now on the road, Darcy recounts the truth of what happened to Vision to him, whilst they get stopped by some distractions. In this conversation, I realise that Vision has never really had any choice or agency in his life. Jarvis was created by Tony to be a servant, and he was then put into a body by Ultron to be a weapon of mass destruction. SWORD wanted to use him for their own means, and now Wanda keeps him around just to keep her happy. The guy doesn't really have any choice in this world, and I feel like this show will very much be about him gaining his independence whilst others still want to use him for their own means. I also kind of feel like these quote-unquote roadblocks were put in place by Agatha, as whenever someone has got close to the truth, she's made them deviate from the path in some way. Thus, I feel like this has been done to accomplish that here, and whatever her end goal is, she definitely wants to keep the hex going. Now Monica finally arrives at Wanda's, and we see her wearing a scarlet hoodie similar to her costume. Monica tries to tell her about Hayward's plan, and Wanda makes her levitate, but she comes down with a superhero landing. They all bloody do it. Now the neighbourhood stop and watch, and we see that they are pretty much fixated on Wanda and Monica. They could all be servants for Agatha at this point, and I'm not writing anything off. I know you're watching, Dottie, I know it's you. Now Monica knows that Wanda is a good person deep down and that she won't kill her, and it's only upon Agatha's arrival that she's unable to get through to her. Agatha takes her to her home, and Vision, tired of waiting by all these Truman Show level-esque distractions, decides to fly to Wanda himself. Inside Agatha's home, she realizes that something is wrong, likely because reality here is stabilized. She also notices a fly on the curtain, and I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but the green on it reminded me a lot of Nightmare. As I said earlier, I think there's more than meets the eye, and that a bigger bad will be teased before being fully revealed to go forward as a staple villain, similar to what Thanos was. Wanda notices the twins' food is half eaten, and this is potentially because they were drugged. The glasses also have hexagons in the middle of the star pattern, tying back to the way that the world is built. In the basement, Wanda sees an ancient cavern covered in roots and tree branches, and she travels into it, which is when the aspect ratio changes, showing that this is the real world. There's a sect here similar to a coven, and also what I believe is the Darkhold. The Darkhold is an ancient book of spells that has appeared throughout the comics, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a lot more. The only reason that I'm questioning whether it is or not is because the design is different, but I believe that it would be something that Agatha would possess, and it could also showcase how the reality was created. Agatha comes in and reveals the truth, and she says that Wanda isn't the only magical girl in town. I'm looking at you, Dottie. Now, it could be possible that the entire women's meeting from episode 2 was actually all of the witches in Westview who had come together. This would be a reveal that tied in with the source material, though that might be a reach. And I know Geraldine isn't a witch yet, before you start commenting. Now, Agatha is stroking Senor Scratchy, and this is similar to how she carries her cat Ebony in the comics. I think they switched it to a rabbit so the reveal wasn't too obvious, but in the source material, that animal actually has the ability to change into a large black panther. Her brooch has also reappeared, and it's likely that this is actually the key to her powers. We then see things from Agatha's perspective, and get a hilarious twist on the Munsters theme tune, which shows things from her perspective as she messes with people. Now there is a moment amongst this where we see her magic against Evan Peters' back. In the post-credit scene when Monica is snooping around, he appears and seems to be like a villain. However, I think that this is just a hint to us that she's actually controlling him and that he probably will be a good guy. A lot of people have theorized that Quicksilver could actually be Mephisto or Nightmare in disguise, and this was given further credence by the character's name appearing in quotation marks on his Funko Pop. However, I think that this is because in the Fox universe he was known as Peter, and the quotation marks are likely because he's now playing Pietro, which we know is a recast joke. The Halloween episode also showed the characters in the costumes that they wear in the comics, and thus we can take it that these are their true versions. His appearance in the post-credits scene also has the blue and white, so I'm not fully convinced that he's an evil guy. Agatha doing this to him at the door, to me at least, cements that he's not in control of it, and I know she's a bad woman because she killed Sparky, you son of a bitch. Now, as mentioned, the post-credits scene contains Monica making it to Agatha's house and finding the entrance to the basement. Quicksilver arrives and likely captures her, however we know that Vision is going there too, and thus we can take it that he will free them and potentially also knock Evan Peters out of it. I hope so anyway, please don't be bad, yeah? I want the X-Men, I want Hugh Jackman back! Now before we get into my review of episode 7 and the news of a Jimmy Woo show, I really appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our breakdowns on the last 2 episodes. As for the show itself, I'm absolutely in love with the series at this point. Not since Westworld have I been so captivated by the mysteries behind a season, and though seeing that please stand by sign at the end of every episode sucks, the next episode is always worth the week-long wait. Though I liked Scarlet Witch and Vision in the comics, the pair were never really my favourite, but similar to what Marvel have done with Captain America and Iron Man, they've managed to move these C-listers up to be major stars. They've arguably got one of the most fascinating arcs in the entire MCU, and week after week I can't wait to see what happens. I've actually gone back and watched all of the episodes about 4 times now, and even though I wasn't too hot on the opening 2, with the added context of what we now have, I think they're a lot better. This was another excellent entry, and as they slowly start to pull back the curtain on the show, I'm really enjoying it more and more. Now this is normally the part of the video where I talk about leaks, but there's not really been that many this week, so I thought I'd focus on teasers towards a show that we might be getting down the line. Also, I just want to thank each and every one of you for getting the videos trending 5 weeks in a row. My dad has finally started calling me son instead of trash bag, and it's really helped with my self-esteem. Also, it looks like we might be seeing more of Jimmy Woo after the show ends, as Stephen Ford teased on Twitter that his Disney Plus spin-off series might have been greenlit. He still hasn't offered confirmation yet, but he did post a picture of his brown and black Xbox controller in front of what looks like agency documents for the character. Ford is the mind behind Teen Wolf, and there is potential that he's been working with Disney Plus in order to push this idea forward. It looks like Park's head has been superimposed onto Daniel Craig's James Bond one, and I think it would be great if Marvel took this idea of a secret agent and applied it to Jimmy. It also opens the door for things like Agents of Atlas, a group which Jimmy was a member of, and potentially we could see their formation in the MCU. Now, I'm not by any means saying that this is a definite, and Ford himself could just be trying to build hype around a show that he's pitching. However, Jimmy is such a popular character, and if they were going to do something with him, I think that this would be one of the best avenues. Anyway, that's the video, and I'd obviously love to hear your thoughts on the episode, so make sure you comment below and let me know. As a thank you for interacting with us, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 28th of February, in which we're giving away 3 copies of the Marvel Phase 3 4K box set to our subscribers. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. The links to our socials are in the description, and you can also support the channel by clicking the join button, and as a thank you, you get videos like this early. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of all the theories around Agnes and why we thought she was faking it. We've also covered every episode of the series so far, so if you missed one of them, then they'll be linked on screen right now. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through this. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.